Okay. Aha, there's the sound. Okay. I apologize, guys. I just noticed my mic was not picking up. Every once in a while, for some reason, my software will reset to default, the default audio input device, which is not my microphone. I don't know what it just says default in the box. So I have to go back in and reselect my microphone. So I apologize. That is now fixed. So you guys should be able to hear me just fine now. So let's start over. Okay. Yep. Looks like everything's good. So let's start over from the beginning, from the top. This is picking up where we left off. This is going to be a 4-part series of live streams in which we're discussing the full home building process from start to finish. At this point, all that we have left is the finish phase, which is the very end. I include all finish work essentially after you have your drywall up or whatever interior wall finish you're using, typically drywall. After that phase, you really don't have any other inspections until the final inspection that you do for a CO. So I include all of this as one phase, but it is a large phase. I mean, there's a lot that goes into finishing a home after your drywall goes in. So we're going to cover a lot of topics here. There's no way I'm going to be able to mention everything. There's some things I'm just going to forget. I do want to make this channel more of a community kind of thing. So please, by all means, if there's anything that you think of that I don't mention as something that is important to think of in finish work, or I'm also going to cover common things that cause a final inspection to fail. Since I am an inspector, I have a little bit of experience with that. So we'll talk about a lot of the things that I would often fail final inspections for. But yeah, if there's anything that you think of that you think would be helpful for other people to know about, please, by all means, leave it in the comments. It's super helpful. So quick overview of what we've covered so far that got us to this point. We've covered planning, excavation, foundation, sub slab, framing, sheathing, dry-in, roof. Then we have a rough-ins, so you got mechanical, plumbing, and electrical rough-ins. And then at that point, you're ready for your insulation. You put insulation in, drywall, and then we have the finish phase, which is what we're going to be discussing today. So I think we'll just jump right into that. When it comes to finish work, there's a lot, like I was saying. So let's start from the exterior, and we'll work our way in from the exterior as far as finish work goes. So on the exterior, finish work is going to include things like, well, let's cover everything. Some of these things might be done earlier and and a lot of times should be done earlier, and sometimes they shouldn't. But exterior items are going to be like decks, siding, you have exterior light fixtures, trim goes with the siding. You got paint. Usually the exterior needs some paint. I think that's about it. You got landscaping and things like that as well. So I guess we'll include that. Exterior concrete work. So if you're doing a concrete driveway, or even an asphalt driveway, you're going to need that comes at the very end. Sidewalks, walkways, paths, that kind of stuff. Aprons where you connect to the road. Basically all this stuff is going to be done during the finish phase of the build, as far as the exterior goes. Now, a couple things to talk about there. Decks. Sometimes decks are built during the framing phase because typically your framing crew is going to be the one that built your deck. And in order to make their schedule run more smoothly, they'll just go ahead and frame the deck while they're already there framing the rest of the house, right? Ideally, you would frame your deck towards the end after the rest of the house is more or less built. You do need to have your ledger put on before you do siding, so make sure that you have at least that on, but you don't have to build the rest of the deck until the end if you want. That's, in my opinion, preferable for a few reasons. Primarily the fact that you don't have possible damage happening to the deck during construction. Now, if you do go ahead and frame your deck up when you're framing the house and you know there's going to be a lot of construction going on still while that deck is there, I would put something else on top. Don't use your finished decking material. Just take some sheets of OSB, basically make it like you're framing or, doing a new subfloor section. But just use some old crappy OSB sheets or plywood sheets or whatever you got laying around is usually what I would use. And just screw those down onto your deck joist with a few screws in each sheet. And that should be more than good enough for for use during construction. Then when you get to the final phase, the finish phase of the home, and you're ready to put the actual finished decking material on, you can pull all those up by just removing a handful of screws in each sheet, pull those sheets off, and you put your decking material down, you're good to go. What else? Stairs, a lot of times for stairways going up onto a deck, if it's going to be used by your crews during construction, feel free to use some temporary stairs. Just build some cheap 2x steps that go up. Make sure your building inspectors can be okay with it. Sometimes they want to make sure it's going to be a little safer or that it's attached properly or something like that. But typically, at least in our area, we will allow you to have some temporary steps that don't necessarily meet code, but they're safe enough for use during construction. By not meeting code, I mean that they may not have the proper railing or have proper footing for the posts, or if you got posts and things like that. A concrete landing. Usually, at least for us, we always require concrete landings at the bottom of exterior stairs that are used for egress means. And so that concrete landing will typically also be done at the end. Like I was saying, exterior concrete work is typically a finish item there. So that pretty much covers that. Siding is another one of those things that can often be done earlier on, because once you get the home dried in, go ahead and slap some siding on it. You don't really want to leave your house wrap. If you're using house wrap, you don't really want to leave that exposed for too long. If you're using like a zip system, that's better than house wrap. It's not going to get torn to shreds by wind and stuff like that. So the zip system does last longer being exposed. And so if you're using that, you could wait and do the siding later. Typically, you're going to have your carpenters, your framing crew, or whoever will often do your siding as well. You can find subcontractors that specifically do siding, and it really depends on what kind of siding you're using. But if you're using like an LP siding, lap siding or something, carpenters are more than happy. Framing carpenters can do that stuff. It's easy. So siding is another one of those exterior finish items. And then you got there's gonna be, like I said, exterior light fixtures, sconces, or whatever you're putting outside. Make sure you have all those put up and on. You'll have trim with your siding, of course. That just goes along with the siding. So other than that, basically just paint. If you got to paint your siding, there are pre-finished siding that you can use. I actually like them. I think pre-finished siding is a pretty good way to go, but I'm not a painter. I don't really like doing painting that much, and I'm not that great at it, although it's not very difficult. Yeah, the pre-finished stuff, you do pay more for it. It's up to you. If it's in your budget, I say go for it. I like the pre-finish, and it comes with a warranty, which is really nice. Otherwise, you're going to end up painting your siding, so just plan for that as well. A lot of times, a lot of builders will just buy a bunch of siding that's just primed, not finished, and that way you can really finish it with whatever color you want. And so they can just buy bulk of a whole bunch of siding. If you're doing multiple homes, but you don't want to make each home the same color, you can still buy bulk siding, just buy it all primed, and then you can paint those homes once the siding is up, paint them whatever, you can have different colors for them, right? If you're doing a bunch of houses on one street or something like that. Or different clients, just buy a whole bunch of siding and then you can use it. Like lap siding is pretty common in our area. LP lap siding or hardy board or whatever, right? Things like that. So something to consider there. The other thing with siding, if you're in like a wildfire prone area, you may want to go with a cement board siding like hardy or something, just because that is way more fire resistant than using, let's say, LP, right? LP is like an OSB type material. Essentially, it's an engineered wood product, and then they just make it into siding instead of like OSB sheets or something. It is a little bit different. I think they use different glues and a little bit different process with it, but it is essentially the same thing. So after that, let's move to the interior. So interior finishes, this is going to be a big category. Let's start with the big ticket item, your flooring. Flooring is going to be huge. The bigger the house, the bigger the amount of flooring you're going to need, obviously. There's a few different options when it comes to flooring, right? Nowadays, very popular Let's say there's really 3 or maybe 4 popular types of flooring these days that are easy, budget friendly to install typically. Although every class of flooring material, you're going to have high end material and low end. So it's always possible to spend a lot. There are, depending on what kind of flooring you're going to use, there are some things that you should be aware or watch for. For example, LP, or sorry, not LP, LVP, which is just luxury vinyl plank. It's also often called LVT, which is, I guess they're a little bit different. The planks are really more the longer ones. LVT comes in a lot of different sizes and not necessarily just long plank styles. But with that kind of flooring, for example, it's very, very important. There's 2 things that you really need to watch for with that. Well, really, there's 3 things that you need to know about LVP flooring. 1, underlayment. A lot of them have a built-in, what they call an underlayment, right? It's like a rubber film that's on the bottom of the planks of flooring. That rubber film, although they call it an underlayment, is not a true flooring underlayment. Okay, you still want a separate flooring underlayment, especially if you're going over concrete, but I even put it over top of wood subfloor. You want to use a separate underlayment for your LVP flooring. Don't just rely on the one that is, glued onto the bottom of those planks. That's going to make a big difference. Another thing that makes a big difference with LVP flooring, and this separates the good floor from the bad floor, is going to be your core. Okay, the core of that flooring, the thickness of that core makes a huge difference. The thicker, the better. Believe me, if you've ever walked on an LVP floor, and people that hate LVP, it's because they've walked on the cheap stuff. When you walk on a cheap LVP floor and you can kind of feel it squishing under your weight with every step, that's because it has a thin core. It flexes with only 100 pounds of weight, right? The thicker the core, if you get a nice thick core on that, then it's not going to flex at all. It's going to feel very stiff and solid. That is probably the biggest thing that's going to make a difference between a floor that feels high quality and low quality. It really isn't how much you spend on it, because you can find a really thick core on some of the lower end LVP products as well. So the price, surprisingly enough, doesn't really, honestly, I think the biggest thing that makes a difference in price with the LVP flooring is going to be the print, whatever design it is, and if it has texture to it or not. Okay, that seems to be what really makes the biggest difference. But anyways, so core, the thickness of the core, you want as thick as you can get within your budget. The third thing and really final thing that makes a big difference with LVP, and it's just an important feature or factor to consider in your LVP flooring when you're trying to choose a brand or a specific LVP to go with, is going to be the wear layer. So on the very top layer of all that LVP flooring, there's going to be what's called a wear layer, and this is basically a transparent layer or film that's on the top of that flooring that protects the print or the design that's on that flooring from being worn away. Okay, the wear layer is designed to be worn away over time, but you need to make sure it has a thick wear layer. The thicker the wear layer, the longer that flooring is going to last. If it has a very thin wear layer, it can become worn out in just a handful of years and need to be replaced a lot sooner. So those are basically 3 important things with that. You also have carpet is a very, it's traditional and it's still common today. Carpet is a good, cheap, easy to install flooring material. You will need your tack strips with that and all that. But yeah, lots of different kinds of carpet. You can go really, really cheap with carpet, or you can go really expensive with carpet. There's some really nice like Berber carpets and whatnot. I'm not a huge fan of carpet. I like hard floors because they're just so much easier to clean. Carpet tends, especially if you have pets, which I do, then pets can really tear up carpets quickly. So it's kind of important to consider the use of the home when you're considering flooring types. Another really durable type of flooring, which I've had in a previous home of mine, was tile. We actually had a wood look tile, so it looked like wood flooring, but it was actually tile. We had that in one of our previous homes. Really nice stuff. Go with porcelain because porcelain is going to be so much more durable than a ceramic tile when you're using it for flooring. So make sure you're getting porcelain, I would recommend. And then just just make sure the color palette works with what you're going with. Use a nice neutral color palette. Tile floors are extremely painful to remove. Okay, so you want to go with something that is unlikely to be removed and replaced, right? You want it to be something that's going to stay in that home for a long time. Tile, though, very durable. It's waterproof. It's very difficult to damage with scratch, although we did crack one of our porcelain tiles in our home by dropping something really heavy. What else can I say about tile? The grout really matters. Make sure the grout color goes well with the color of the tile itself. I've seen some really weird combinations of color with tile, and it does not look good. So you want to make sure you pick something that doesn't stand out a whole lot, nice neutral tone, and works well with the other colors of the home. What else with flooring? Those are really the three main types of flooring that are used nowadays. You also still have, of course, like linoleum, laminate sheet, all that kind of stuff. That's also budget items. You'll use that more if you're doing like a rental. But if you're doing like a spec home or a contract build, you're more than likely going to be using, wood floors was the other one. I kept thinking there's one and then I'm forgetting. So the other style of flooring that you would see is wood floors. This is more of a high-end style of flooring because it is a lot easier to damage. It's just not as durable. So you usually don't see people wanting this in a home that have small kids or lots of pets or dogs, that just would scratch up that flooring, things like that. But yeah, hardwood flooring, you have engineered hardwood is a really good option. Also a little bit more on the pricey end. So you're going to see that more in like spec homes and contract builds, for example, higher end stuff. I think that pretty much covers it for flooring. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about that. With the carpet, make sure you have a good underlayment there as well. One that's waterproof, preferably, because carpet does obviously let liquids flow through it fairly easily. So whatever you're using as an underlayment is very likely to have moisture sitting on it over time. So you want to use something that's going to be moisture resistant or moisture proof there. But underlayment is very important for your carpet as well. The other thing with floorings, you kind of have two basic types of flooring. You have a floating floor system, and then you have your, what do you call it? The attached floor system. The word is escaping my mind right now. Anyways, like hardwoods are usually glued down or nailed down. Tile is set in cement, basically mortar, right? Yeah, so those aren't going to move, and then your floating floor systems like your LVP or some laminates and things are going to be, you don't want to have heavy things pinning them down to the subfloor because they are meant to float and move a little bit over your subfloor. So yeah, moving on. After flooring, we have, where was I going? Let's see. Interior stuff. So what's next on big interior stuff? Doors. Interior doors, you're going to have a lot of usually. So get all your interior doors done. Pre-hung. I always go pre-hung just because it's easy and quick. Yeah, paint your doors. Take them off and paint them and then hang them again. Things like that. Not a whole lot to say about doors. Make sure you include your door stops. Don't forget about your door stops. The little springy things or whatever kind you want to use that stop the door from hitting the wall when it opens. What else? So interior stuff, other interior stuff that we have. So you're putting in cabinetry in the bathrooms and kitchen. Cabinetry is a big deal. Pretty much you can either go stain grade or paint are your two options. And then you can either go with like box store ready-made, or you can go with custom cabinets. There's also semi-custom that come from the big box stores. They're not bad. I've used the semi-custom set. If you're on a budget, they're actually get a painted semi-custom cabinetry from one of the big box stores. It's really affordable. They're pretty decent quality. I mean, obviously it's not going to be as high quality as a custom set of cabinets, but they still use real plywood for the sides and back and all that. The doors are the only thing that I think they really cheap out on. They use a lot of MDF type product for the doors, but the rest of the actual cabinet boxes themselves are quite nice. And you could actually even just get the cabinet boxes, I believe, and without doors, and then buy your own doors that are nicer is an option. If you're going stain grade, probably just go with some nice cabinets. It makes a big difference in the look of the home. It's gonna make it easier to sell. If it's a rental though, then go with cheap. Okay. Same thing with countertops. You can go with nice countertops like quartz or granite, or you can go with something a little cheaper, travertine or tile. I've even seen tile countertops. So if you're doing like a rental, go with something cheaper. But if you're doing a spec home or a contract build, you'll probably be doing a stone countertop for your kitchen at least, and probably for the vanities in the bathrooms as well. I like quartz myself. Granite is also really nice though. I just like the look that quartz has typically. You know what? I am not even showing anything on here. This is really what I wanted to show here was going to be a lot of the items that I talk about that are things that are missed at a final inspection that cause that inspection to fail. But yeah, as far as what else do we have for interior stuff? Obviously, you're gonna have all your interior trim. Usually do that when you're doing doors. So you'll have all your baseboards, casings around the doors. If you're doing casings on windows, I like doing casings rather than drywall returns for our windows. Makes it look nicer. What else? I think that's about it as far as interior stuff. All your light fixtures, your plumbing fixtures are gonna go in. You need to bring in all your appliances. What else? Ceiling fans, things like that. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything important, like anything big. I think that's most of the big items, honestly, for finish work. You'll find that there's a lot of little things. Obviously, you got to put all your switches and outlets in. You got to put the covers on them all. You need hardware on all your doors or pulls, make sure everything matches. Things like that. Final details. Let's move on to final details. So this is where we're going to talk about things that are commonly missed in final inspections that I do. And these might differ a little bit in the requirements area to area, but pretty standard stuff. House number. It's required to be, I forget what the exact size is. I think they're 4 inches. At least 4 inches in height. Yep, 4 inches. So they need to be visible from the street. Your house number needs to be posted somewhere that can be seen, right? The numbers are required by code to be at least 4 inches in size for each number. 4 inches in height, sorry. That pretty much covers it though. There's not a whole lot else to it. Yeah, there's not really any diagrams to show for that or anything. Just make sure it's visible from the road and that it meets the code for size. But I do see that missed a lot because a lot of times people are finishing their homes and they don't think about the house and putting the house number up. It is in the IRC code. You do need to have it in order to pass final inspections. Don't forget to put the house number up. Another thing that's often missed, the self-closing door to the garage. Let me see if I can find an example. A lot of people aren't really aware of that. I think everybody, if you go look at your door that goes from the house to an attached garage, most people don't realize it, but that door almost always, or at least it should, self-close. It has special hinges on it that have springs in them that will make that door self-close. During construction, a lot of carpenters, when they're framing a home or putting doors in, whatever, once the door is in that goes into a garage, because a garage is often used as a staging area for construction, especially during the finish work, like for trim and siding and all that stuff. You'll have people going in and out through the door to the garage a lot, going from the garage to the interior of the home and back and forth. So it's very common for builders to put a temporary door on that doesn't have the spring hinges, or if they are using the actual finished door, they'll put that on there, usually cover it up with some paper or something just to protect it a little bit. But then they'll loosen up the springs in the hinges all the way so that it doesn't self-close. That way you can just prop that door open really easily so people can move in and out all the time without having to open the door every time. But when you get to the finishing phase and you're finishing that home, getting ready for final inspection, make sure you go back and adjust the springs. And it just takes a little Allen wrench. There's a little tiny adjustment set screw type thing in there, and you just take an Allen wrench and adjust it. You tighten it up to make it to make it the spring tighter, which will close the door, or you can loosen it so that it doesn't close the door. Make sure you do that. I would say there are multiple times I have had people miss that at final inspection. I come to do the final inspection, that's not done. That is required by code. That's a safety issue. The door, if left open from a garage to a house and a vehicle is running in the garage, would let all that carbon monoxide into the house, which is obviously not safe. So spring hinges on the doors. You can use other mechanisms that will self-close a door. I was gonna look here for it didn't pull up an example of what I wanted. See, these are all like, but this is what I'm talking about right here. So you can see it's got these little holes. Well, there's the one up here is the one that you usually use for adjusting. It's usually near the top. But anyways, you just stick a little Allen wrench in there and you turn it and it tightens up or it loosens. That will allow the door to self-close and meet code. What else do people miss at final inspection? Light switches are a big one. How do I want to explain this? So there have been times, and I wouldn't say it's a big one, but there have been a couple times where I would go to doing a final inspection, right? And maybe there's like an exterior porch light or something, right? So I'll try to find the switch that controls that light and can't find it. There is no switch for that light, okay? Make sure that there are switches for all your lights. I don't know how it got missed. It seems like an obvious thing, but somehow it got missed. We don't do electrical inspections here in our area, so as long as the electrical is done by a licensed electrician, a state licensed electrician, we don't require anything other than that. We just need to know who the electrician was and that they have a state license. The other option is for a homeowner to do their own electrical work, which is perfectly fine in our state. But you do need to get a state inspection by the fire marshal, the state fire marshal office or whatever. They do state electrical inspections for homeowners that do their own electrical work. So find out what the requirements are in your area. It's going to differ from area to area a little bit, but that's how it works for us. So somehow the electrical, the switch was missed that went to that exterior light. I caught it, fortunately, because I was checking all the light switches. They went back in and fixed that and eventually passed their final inspection. But that's another thing to think about. Along those same lines, doorbell, pretty common thing. Make sure you have a doorbell in your house. It has been forgotten before. So another thing, landings. So I kind of mentioned this earlier with the exterior steps, egress steps. When you have stairs on the exterior home, they're used for egress. In other words, they're used to access the home either at the front door, back door, whatever. Those stairs are required to have a landing at the bottom. Now, the code is not super specific on what constitutes a landing, other than the fact that a landing needs to be in the direction of travel for 36 inches. So basically 3 feet in the same direction of travel, right? It needs to extend out that far and be the same width as the stairs that it is for. Other than that, as far as material goes, it's not real specific. I think I'd have to go back and look. I don't know this part of the code that well because we have our own town ordinance that deals with this actually and requires a concrete landing on all egress steps. So if it's not concrete, it fails in our area. But IRC code itself does not specify concrete. That is an option, but you can also do, I guess, pavers. I don't even know what else there would be. We just do concrete because that works the best. But there are other options. Look into it. If you don't want to do concrete, I recommend just doing a poured concrete landing for all your exterior stairs. But that's another thing that's missed a lot, at least around here. Because that exterior, I mentioned before, exterior concrete work has to be done in the finish phase. A lot of times the builder is not really thinking about it. Their concrete guy comes in at the very beginning of the build, right? He does the foundation and the slab. He doesn't come back after that. But the landing for your steps for your deck is usually not going to go in until that deck is built. So unless you're having your concrete guy come back out, you need somebody else that's going to be on site doing that concrete landing when you're doing the framing. So that's why it gets missed a lot. Builders just kind of overlook it until the very end of the build, and then they don't really have somebody on hand to go and do it. So they usually just go ahead and schedule the final inspection anyways, hoping that I'm not going to say anything about it. of course I do say something about it, and then it becomes this whole thing where I have to go back and look at it a few weeks later after they get that done. So make sure check what the requirements are, first of all, for your area, if there are any specific requirements. But even if there aren't any that require specifically concrete, I highly recommend just doing a concrete landing. It's very quick, simple, easy, cheap, and it works the best. What else do I see? Safety railings. So exterior decks, you need safety railing on anything that's going to be over, 30 inches above grade. Is it 30 or 36? Pretty sure it's 30. I have my checklist where I write all these specific numbers down, so I don't memorize them all. I just look at my checklist, and then whatever it says there, I look for that. I think it was 30 inches for exterior. So like if you have a deck on your exterior or patio, porch, whatever, if it's got more than 30-inch drop to grade, then you got to have some sort of safety railing there. Stairs need to have a safety railing, handrail. If it's more than 3 steps, so if you have 4 steps or more, then you need to have a handrail there. So yeah, that's an important thing. I have had to fail final inspections for that before because somebody thought that they were okay it was like a 3-foot drop, and they thought they were okay not having a safety railing there. You're not okay with that. So make sure you have safety railing in all the appropriate locations. Plumbing shutoffs. This is another big one that will fail final inspections a lot. You need to have shutoffs for all your plumbing fixtures. The only fixture that doesn't require a shutoff, off the top of my head, is going to be your bathtub. Yeah, bathtubs and showers, I believe, are the only fixtures where you don't need to have an accessible shutoff at the fixture. Everything else, sinks, toilets, any other, I guess, water heater, any other fixture, plumbing fixture, besides tubs and showers, needs to have an accessible shutoff. Okay, so usually for sinks, if you have, let's say, a bathroom vanity, you got a sink there, or it's a double vanity, so you have 2 sinks there. Underneath, inside the cabinet, right underneath that sink, you're going to have a shutoff for both hot and cold water on each of those sinks. For toilets, the shutoff is usually right down there behind the toilet where the water line comes out of the wall. So that's very easy to access, obviously. But things like that, make sure you have your water. The one that I've seen this fail on is not having an accessible water shutoff for sinks, particularly bathroom sinks. I don't know why, but for some reason people, I guess they get to the bathroom, the plumber got to the bathroom sink, and he just says it's not that important. I don't know. But that's happened more than once, multiple times, where I've had to fail final inspection because at least one of the bathroom sinks just did not have accessible shutoffs. Stairs. There's a lot of code that goes into stairs, stairwells, stairways, interior, exterior, all of it. Stairs are a big safety hazard. People can very easily get hurt or even die on stairs, obviously. So there's a lot of code surrounding safety concerns with stairs. Your treads need to be a certain size, right? The surface area of the step, right? The distance from the edge of the step to the back of the step has a certain requirement. It's a minimum of 10 inches by IRC code. Also the step riser. In fact, let me pull up a picture of this. I'm just going back to think real quick if there was anything I wanted to pull pictures up of the other stuff we were talking about, because I keep forgetting. I don't think so. So let's go stairs code. You can very easily pull up code for stairs because stairs are such a very specifically covered area of code. People have created a lot of diagrams and things to cover it. Let me go up here. So let's talk about that real quick. That's a pretty crappy diagram. This looks like the diagram from the code. So you have 10 inches minimum for the tread. That's this distance here. And that goes from the nosing. Oh, sorry, you can't see my mouse because I was on the wrong, or could you? No, I was on the right screen. Okay. So your tread goes from the nosing. The nosing is this part of the step that sticks out over the riser. So from the front of the nosing on the step above it, right, to the edge of the nosing on this step. That is a 10-inch minimum by IRC code. IRC code also requires a riser height maximum, okay, minimum for the tread, so it has to be 10 inches or more, maximum for the riser height, and this goes from, again, the tread, top of tread to top of the next tread. That has to be a maximum of 7 3/4 inch. So you cannot go over 7 3/4 inch. Now, aside from that, you also cannot vary in either one of these measurements between all the steps. The variance cannot be more than 3/8 of an inch. Yeah, notes that right here, 3/8 of an inch. That is also code required. So you can't have a 10-inch step here and a 10.5-inch step here. That would not meet code. It would have to be a 10-inch and a 10 3/8 inch. That would be the maximum variance allowed between any two steps in that flight of stairs, not just consecutive steps. If the bottom step is 10 inches, the top step cannot be more than 10 3/8 inches. Or, well, yeah, because it has to be over 10 inches. That does go the other way. So if you're doing 11-inch steps, then the 11 inches, you could go down to 10 and what would that be? 3 5/8. So it'd be 10 and 5/8, or well, I don't know if I really, okay. So, or 11 3/8, but you also can't go all the way from 10 5/8 to 11 3/8 because that would be obviously 3/4 of an inch difference, not 3/8 of an inch difference there. So, really, if you're going to be going both directions, just take 3/16 off of 10 in each direction. That gives you your allowed variance. Carpenters know all of this. I just bring this up because it is a common thing that I have failed final inspections for. A lot of times in the framing, I'll look at stairs when they're framed, okay? But the rough framing is difficult to tell what the final measurements of those steps are going to be because you don't know exactly what the finishing material is going to be. A lot of times, builders will just throw down some 2x material or even 3/4 inch subfloor, just some scrap as steps to use on those stairs while they're building, and then they'll come back towards the very end, switch out all of that with some proper steps. There are some proper treads and risers, and then you have your finished material that goes on top of that. So if you're doing hardwood, that's going to be thicker than if you're just doing carpet, or if you're doing an LVP, that's going to be a different thickness as well. So a lot of times the builders don't consider the thickness of the finished material when they're designing their stairs. So make sure that your framers know what your finished material is going to be on those steps, and what the finished material on the floor at the top of the stairs and at the bottom of the stairs is going to be, because that measurement also matters. That all is included as riser height, right? So the riser from the floor at the bottom of the step, and then this riser at the very top that goes from the last step to the floor at the top. All of that is important. You also have things like the nosing has to be in between 3/4 of an inch and 1.25 inch overhang. It needs to be rounded with, oh, sorry, I'm putting my mouse on the wrong screen again. So you have your 3/4 inch to 1.25 inch range for your nosing. Also, the radius here has to be 9/16 inch maximum, okay? You don't have to do a rounded nosing, but if you do, that's your maximum there. What else? There's code as far as like the flight of stairs itself, how many steps you can have in a flight of stairs before it has to be broken up with a excuse me, with a landing. There's a lot of other code requirements that go with like spiral staircases and things like that. But this is pretty much the basics of building stairs to code. And this all really comes into play when you're framing this, doing the rough framing on the stairs, because you're going to cut out those stair stringers. That's going to determine those steps from that point forward. Now you can shim them to fix things that go wrong. It's not going to be as nice of a staircase, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do if you make a mistake. The other option is tear it out and start over. So it's stairs are a big one. Make sure that your stairs are done correctly. I have caught this at final inspection before where they didn't do proper nosing on their stairs. So like the nosing at the top step was missing. They had nosing on all the other steps, but the top step, the finished material they used, they just decided not to use a nosing on. Well, that didn't meet code. So because the steps are only 10 inches, if you don't have nosing, you have to be at least 11 inches. If they were 10-inch steps. They were meant to meet code, but they were meant to meet code with a nosing. Didn't have the nosing, failed. They had to fix it, go in there, fix it, and then I came back and passed the final inspection. So stairs are something that you need to be aware of, as well as the proper clearance at the bottom of stairs, 36 inches direction of travel, before you hit a wall or something like that. So be aware of all those things. Important stuff with stairs. There's a lot to cover over that, but I think that's more or less the basics of it. What other things? Let me think. We covered stairs. Oh, smoke detectors. I wanted to mention smoke detectors. So a lot of times you'll have your electrical rough-ins, right? I already mentioned that I don't do electrical inspection because all we require around here is just that a state licensed electrician did it, or the state inspector will come and do that if it's a homeowner doing their own. I'm no electrician. I don't specialize in electrical by any means. I know just enough to do wiring, and that's about it. So when it comes to electrical, you have your rough in, you're going to have all your wiring come in. That's when you want to look for the wiring going to all of your smoke detector locations, make sure they're there. Okay. That's the first part of it. The second part is going to be making sure that the smoke detectors are actually installed after drywall and everything is up, and everything, all the electrical fixtures are going in. Okay. I have seen where it gets missed. Okay. They didn't have a smoke detector in the proper location. Now, typically it means that they simply missed it after the drywall went up and they came back and installed the smoke detectors. Usually the wiring is there for it. They just had to pop a hole in the wall and then install the smoke detector. I have seen it at least once, I think maybe twice, where they forgot the wiring completely. So they had to tear open drywall, bring wiring over from one of the other smoke detectors because they are supposed to be all on a dedicated circuit. Bring wiring over from another smoke detector location and install that smoke detector there. There was one time where they actually went with a wireless smoke detector system because they forgot wiring for a couple. That's fine. Just make sure you follow code. Look up the code for that because there are some specific requirements for using the wireless smoke detectors as well. But that's another thing, smoke detectors. Make sure not just that you have the wiring for them when you're doing rough-ins, but also make sure that they actually get installed during the final finish phase. Hopefully your code inspector will catch that if you are missing one, because that is pretty important. You don't want to be missing that. Make sure you have smoke detectors in proper locations. Let me see if there's like a diagram for that. Because I could just list it off, but it's a lot easier to understand if you have a diagram. So yeah, that's not bad. Actually, I kind of like that one. You gotta have smoke detectors on each level of the home. You need a smoke detector in each sleeping area. So basically each bedroom. You need a smoke detector outside of the sleeping areas. So in the immediate vicinity, the code is not real specific on like a distance or anything. It basically just says, I think, I don't remember the exact wording, but it says something like the immediate vicinity outside each sleeping area. So that means like the hallway outside the bedrooms. Okay, you got to have one there. That one I have seen missed a couple times. So and it needs to be immediately outside of all bedrooms in the home. So you have 2 wings on the same floor. Make sure there's one outside of each bedroom wing of that home. Things like that. What else? I mean, that's pretty much the basics of smoke detectors as far as where you need them, right? Just make sure there's at least one on each level of the home for each main area, living area. So here they have the living room, one in each bedroom, and then one just outside of each bedroom. That's all you really need. Yeah, pretty simple. Beyond smoke detectors, make sure you test them, make sure they all work. The building inspector should do that, but doesn't hurt to do it yourself beforehand. Make sure so you don't fail your inspection. Another thing that's often missed, exterior stuff, vent covers. You would think it's pretty straightforward. Why would you have an exterior vent, right, from like an exhaust fan for a bathroom or something, and not have a cover on it? That seems like a huge gaping hole in the side of the house, literally. I've seen it happen though. I go to do a final inspection and there's 2 vents up high on the second story of the home over on the side. They don't have vent covers on them. They're just holes on the side of the home. It seems really obvious to me, but it has happened. So make sure you have your vent covers. That is important. Make sure that all your vents vent to the outside, but all of that, or the vents venting to the outside, that should be checked during your rough-in inspection. But yeah, make sure you get those vent covers on there. Kitchen vent hood along the lines of venting. make sure you're following code with the vent hood. There are some requirements. You can either do the like a what are those, the microwaves with the built-in vent that go right over top of your stove. That's fine. You could do a big vent hood over your stove like they like to do in the fancy homes. You also don't, there are cases where you don't necessarily have to have a vent in the kitchen, a vent hood for your stove. I think, I don't remember the exact wording around it, but basically if you have an operable window that can be used for venting in the kitchen, then you're okay without one, more or less. But look up the specific code for your area because that does differ from area to area a little bit. I think that's about it, guys. What else is there that I've seen missed? It's probably about it. Make sure you have your radon vent hooked up. That should have been checked in during your rough-ins inspection. But sometimes it doesn't get done till later, especially on crawl space homes. I don't know why, but when a home is built on crawl space, a lot of times builders like to leave some of that stuff that's hooked up in the crawl space until the very end. Whatever, if that's what they're going to do, just make sure you check it, make sure it's done. Trying to think what else. This is when you're getting like, you know, if you don't have a garage door on yet, get your garage door on. Make sure that it has the safety sensors hooked up, that sort of thing. I've never had an issue with that though. What else is there? I think that pretty much covers it as far as major things to look for in final inspections, or things that are commonly missed in final inspections. Just making sure all your doors close properly and latch shut properly. Make sure you don't have any broken glass in any of the windows. I guess I have seen that once or twice where you might have a cracked window on a brand new home and the builder just tries to get it passed off anyways. Yeah, make sure you don't have any broken windows, obviously. Window screens, you do need to have window screens for your windows. I don't necessarily require them to be installed because a lot of times in the winter here, people remove those window screens from they're not going to be opening their windows in the winter anyways. And the window screens can become damaged from snow and ice that falls against the window if it's like a basement, a window well or something. So I don't make them put the screens in necessarily if it's in the winter or something, but making sure that they have them there in the home, that they are physically present and can be put in at a moment's notice. That's important. So when you get your windows, when windows are typically installed during construction, the window screens are usually all stashed away somewhere safe so that they don't get damaged. Just make sure you put them all in before you schedule your final inspection. What else is there? I know there's other things, so if you guys can think of anything, if you have experience with this, then please, by all means, share anything that comes to mind that you might miss in a final inspection. Essentially, once your final inspection is passed, that means that all safety concerns with the home, or that there aren't any safety concerns with the home, it is all built to code, hopefully. Now, building inspectors do not catch everything. I have missed stuff. Every building inspector I've ever known has missed things once in a while. Nobody's perfect. Things are going to get missed, okay? So don't rely 100% on the building inspector to check your work. As the builder, as the general contractor, it really is your job and your responsibility to make sure that the home is built correctly, and you're the one that's offering the warranty on the home, okay? If there's an issue with that home a year from now, you're the one that's going to get a call. You're the one that's going to have to pay to fix that issue, okay? So just don't rely on your subs to know what they're doing. Don't rely on a building inspector, you know, your local code inspectors, to make sure that a home is built correctly and also built solid, right? I mean, you can still have a code compliant home that's just built really crappy and is going to fall apart, and you can have a code compliant home that's going to last 100 years, okay? There is such a thing as quality of construction, quality of materials, those kind of things. So that will differ, but checking for all the safety stuff, that's really what that code inspector is there for, making sure that the home is safe to be habitable. So it is important that you don't rely on that. You need to know what to look for when you're going into these homes. Otherwise, you're going to have some failed inspections. You'll just have to learn it the hard way. There's plenty of builders that do. Like I said, I have failed a lot of final inspections in my time. And these builders hopefully learn. Some of them don't. Some of them keep making the same mistakes every time. They don't really care. You know, if they have to pay for an extra final inspection, you know, it's $100 out or whatever it is out of the total cost of the build. I guess they're not that worried about it. So There are those builders that rely on somebody like me as a building inspector to kind of let them know what they're missing when they get to the finish line there. Don't be one of those guys. Be one of the guys that knows what needs to be done before you get to the finish line, has it all done. Then when you cross the finish line, you're actually crossing it and you're done. You don't have to reschedule final inspections, because if you can stay on the good side of the building inspector, you will be much better off. The whole process is going to go more smoothly. Whenever an issue does come up, he's going to be way more lenient with you and helpful. But if it's a recurring problem, always having issues with you on your builds, the inspector is not going to be very lenient with that, right? I wouldn't be. If somebody continually does the same things over and over again that I've told them needs to be done on every single house when they're done in order to pass final inspection, and they just keep leaving it off, they keep getting me out there to look at it when it's not really ready, and then I have to go out again, right? I'm going to be harder on guys like that. Like, I'm going to call out little things that I see that aren't correct. And I'm going to make them do that before I come. Whereas if somebody generally has everything done and ready, I don't have a lot of problems with them. They're great with communication. And I go out there and I see something little that's wrong, I might tell them, hey, just get this fixed when you got a minute, send me a picture of it, and you're good to go. I don't need to come back out and look at it, right? But if somebody is really being a pain to work with, I'm going to make them schedule a whole nother appointment for me to come out, do the inspection, make sure it's done correctly. And I might even look for other things, right? I might take a little bit more time, look around a little more closely, because I've already found one thing that wasn't done. Who knows what else there could be, right? If I go through a house and do my initial inspection and I don't see anything wrong, like I can't find anything to bring up, then I'm not too worried about it. But if that initial inspection comes up with one or two things, then I'm going to have to dig a little deeper below the surface, see what else there is that's missing. Because obviously the quality there was not too good to begin with. Yeah, don't be one of those builders. Be one of the ones that knows that their product is done and ready for market when they tell somebody that it is. So that's pretty much all I want to say. A little bit shorter live stream today. We got started later. I apologize for that. We probably won't do it right at 4 o'clock every Sunday. Some days we'll do it later. Some days we might do it a little earlier. But I will always try and put the live stream there on YouTube a few hours, at least a few hours beforehand, so that you guys have a little bit of warning and notice that it's coming. But yeah, so now we're finished with the topic of the home build process from start to finish, right? The next topic I think we're going to cover, let me know in the comments, what topics do you guys really want to hear about in these live streams? What would you like to hear more discussion on? I'm thinking I will do probably the next one. I think we'll talk about subcontractors, what subcontractors you're going to need through the whole process, how to find good subcontractors, how to work with subcontractors, that kind of stuff. So I think that might be what I do next. I'm not 100% sure on that yet, but I know there's plenty of people out there that's one of the hardest areas of building a home for them to really grasp and get a hold of. Just because if you're not in the industry, it can be hard breaking into it, finding good subcontractors that will actually show up, do the work, who aren't already filled with or have filled schedules, right? Usually the good subcontractors, they have no problem finding work. They got steady work, because when a builder finds a good subcontractor, they hold on to them and they keep giving them work, right? So it can be a little bit difficult. It's a little bit of a trial and error process finding good subs, but once you have good subs, use them for every single job you have. If the more work you can give them, the more they will like you, and they'll give you better deals on that work too. So yeah, I think we'll do a discussion on subcontractors next time and talk about that a little bit. I am by no means an expert on hiring, but I have a little bit of experience with it, so I'll share what I know, what I've learned, and hopefully we have some other guys in here that can share some stuff as well. These are Q&As, so if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to ask those questions in the chat and I'll answer them. But I see we don't have any questions for today, so I think we're just going to go ahead and end the stream there. Hopefully I see you guys next time. Look forward to that discussion, whatever it might be, whether it's subcontractors or something else. And then we'll just keep this going. One final note, I know there haven't been any new videos out of the build, our current A-frame build, in the last couple weeks. I pretty much have run through the footage that I had already. We kind of took a break for the winter here, a short break, because the weather, it's been a pretty heavy snow winter. Some winters we don't have a ton of snow. It'll just come in like a wave and then we'll have a bunch of weeks, like a few weeks of clear weather, and then another wave of snow. Other years, it's just constant. Every single week is a little bit more snow, a little bit more snow, a little bit more snow, and it piles up quick. So when we get a chance, we're going to get back in there and pick back up on that build, and I'll have some more recorded footage to put together some videos for you guys. But it is coming along. We're still working on it. It is still in progress. We're at the point where we're putting the windows in, and that's really what's kind of holding us up, is because I can't get a machine in there. We need a lift so that I can lift the big windows that go on the front wall. We got to be able to lift those up there. And with the snow right now, every time I shovel out some of the snow, it snows again. So it's a little tough getting in there with the machine right now, but if we get about 2 weeks of clear weather here, or clearish, maybe a week and a half of clearish weather, where the temperature isn't too warm so that everything is melting and turning slushy, but it's also cold, not too cold to work in. So yeah, we're kind of looking for a Goldilocks zone. We'll get back in there, get those windows installed, and then we can really start going to town with some of the interior rough-ins. We can get plumbing in there, we can get mechanical in there. The electrical is pretty much already done, because that one in this case was being done by the homeowner. This is a contract job, so the homeowner wanted to do his own electrical work and save a little money there. He had some experience with electrical, so he went ahead and got in there to do the electrical. So that was done a little bit out of step. Typically you want to have your mechanical and your plumbing rough-ins done before you put electrical in, but it is what it is in this case. So videos are coming. We'll have more content soon. I am going to do a framing walkthrough where we'll look at all the framing of the A-frame and some of the special things that go on with building the A-frame with this A-frame kit home, and things like that. So stuff to look forward to. Anyways, guys, let's get out of here. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you again next week.